I believe with the credibility of this commission, you can go a long way towards restoring that public trust. I believe there has never been a more credible group of law enforcement professionals assembled in this state on this type of commission, period.
Period. Well, that was New York Governor Andrew Cuomo just over a year ago announcing the formation of what was called the Moreland Commission. It's a group of outside prosecutors and investigators not tied to the administration, and their job to look at corruption in Albany, and God knows there was plenty of that. Cuomo, he gave the panel subpoena power and promised it would be totally independent. Look wherever and anywhere in state government, including at the governor himself, he said, and potentially prosecute those who have broken the public trust. Apparently, at least according to the Times story today, that was then, and this is now. The Times out today with a scathing investigative piece saying Cuomo hobbled that commission, or at least his administration did, using it for political leverage with the legislature, making sure it did not focus on the governor's office. Now, we're going to get to potential impact of the report in a moment, but first, let's get to the details. And Andrew's been looking at this all day, and he joins us now with more.
And Rich, Governor Cuomo personally ended the Moreland Commission in March as part of a deal to pass the state budget. The legislature okayed some minor ethics and campaign finance laws, and Cuomo got other concessions from lawmakers as well. After the budget's approval, Cuomo mentioned Moreland, but only after a question from a reporter. And by then, Cuomo's take on the commission's job seemed to have changed.
The legislature left last year without passing the Public Trust Act. Surprised me, actually. And I then appointed the Moreland Commission. I said at that time, if we pass a Public Trust Act, then I would end the Moreland Commission. The Moreland Commission functioned for a year. I think they did good work. I think they did a good report. I think they informed the dialogue. We passed the Public Trust Act that accomplished what we set out to accomplish last year: real enforcement at the Board of Elections, change the bribery laws so that district attorneys have a tool to enforce, more disclosure laws, et cetera. And I've said consistently, if we pass that law, that we would end Moreland, and we have. And I told the Moreland Commission that from day one.
Now, the shutdown of the commission was met with derision from Cuomo's critics, but U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara was also outraged, promising his office would pick up where the Moreland investigations left off.
Go through the files, and if there are cases to bring that are appropriate for us to bring, we'll bring them. If they're appropriate for us to further refer to local and other federal prosecutors, we'll do that. So, we just want to get our hands on the files and make sure that the work is getting done.
Cuomo responded to claims he had interfered with the Moreland Commission in an interview with Crain's, telling them, quote, "The Moreland Commission was my commission," he said. "It's my commission, my subpoena power, my Moreland Commission. I can appoint it, I can disband it, I can appoint you, I can unappoint you tomorrow. So interference," he continued, "it's my commission. I can't interfere with it because it's mine. It's controlled by me." That was in April. Today, the Times citing examples and reports from several members of the commission claiming Cuomo did interfere. Using their words, Cuomo hobbled it. Example number one, the commission's subpoena of groups connected to the governor, among them a media firm called Buying Time. The firm had placed millions of dollars worth of ads for the state Democratic Party and for Cuomo's gubernatorial campaign in 2010. The commission issued a subpoena. That's when, the Times says, a commission co-chair got a call from Larry Schwartz, Cuomo's secretary and top aide in Albany. Schwartz's take on the subpoena, quote, "This is wrong, pull it back." The subpoena was quickly withdrawn, and that's just what the Times calls the most flagrant example of the administration's meddling in the commission's work. The report goes on, quote, "The commission, established with great ceremony by Mr. Cuomo in July 2013, was hobbled almost from the outset by demands from the governor's office. That, quote, the governor's office deeply compromised the panel's work, objecting whenever the commission focused on groups with ties to Mr. Cuomo or on issues that might reflect poorly on him." The report says, quote, "Mr. Cuomo's aides repeatedly pressured the commission, which as a result was marred by infighting, arguments, and accusations." What's more, the Times reports, quote, "Investigators believed a Cuomo appointee was monitoring their communications without their knowledge." That, quote, Mr. Schwartz specifically told the commission's co-chairs that the governor himself was off limits, contradicting the governor's public statements and private comments to commission members. And the report also suggests Cuomo's true rationale and role for the commission to act as a political cudgel against lawmakers in the legislature, a pressure point that could be used in negotiations. Cuomo reportedly telling the commission co-chairs that, quote, "Rather than subpoenaing lawmakers themselves, the commission should subpoena their law firms and partners," with Cuomo personally assuring those chairs that, quote, he had never seen lawmakers so scared. He urged them to open their own talks with the legislature on a package of ethics reforms. Now, the administration responded to the Times with this 13-page letter to the paper, essentially repeating Cuomo's earlier claim that he can't interfere with the commission he created, and that would be a conflict of interest for the commission the governor created to investigate the governor. The Times responded that the panel never sought to investigate Cuomo and that the administration's interference began when the panel started looking at groups politically close to him. The report would seem to open up a can of worms worth of questions for Cuomo. Among them, were the governor's actions illegal? What political risks does the report pose for him? What's next on the corruption front from the U.S. attorney who continues his investigation? And what happens in Albany, both in response to the report and to the state's ongoing efforts to reduce corruption in state government? Rich?
Andrew, thank you very much. And for more on the Moreland Commission, today's report in the Times, let's bring in Barbara Bartoletti. Barbara, a special advisor to the commission, also serving as the legislative director of the State of New York's League of Women Voters. She says she never experienced any pressure from the governor's office herself, but noted she's not surprised given the history of how Albany works. Now, we spoke via Skype this afternoon. Well, first off, you saw the front page story in the Times. Did it ring true to you? Did it reflect your experiences with the Moreland Commission from both the development of it and when it was implemented?
Well, actually, I, along with I think all of the other commissioners, had very high expectations for the commission when it was formed back in July, just about a year ago. And I think the dedication of the DAs and the other members of the commission certainly, to me, was I was terribly optimistic at the very beginning. I was asked to be a special advisor because of my lengthy experience in the legislature here in Albany. So I really had expectations that with the power behind the Attorney General's office and the fact that all of our people were deputized as Attorney Generals, that this would be different than the Ferret Commission, which had been formed back in former Governor Mario Cuomo's day. And I thought with this extra power that we would be able to accomplish good things and change the culture in Albany. And unfortunately, the status quo seems to be extraordinarily important to the politicians here in Albany. And there was not the political will to follow through.
You had a very powerful quote that people saw in the paper today, Barbara, where you said that the thing that bothered you the most is you said, we created with all this fanfare and the government was going to clean up Albany. And it became purely a vehicle for the governor to get legislation under the notch for his re-election campaign. That was it. At what point, from the creation of the commission until all of a sudden, right on budget night, it magically disappeared as just a line in the budget, did you guys get the feeling that there was a lot of politics going on here? This wasn't all about rooting out corruption.
Well, I think that began to happen as we got further into January, February, when the budget was going on here in Albany. We began to get the feeling that, let's face it, this is an election year, and the people running for elections are involved in making sure that they have something significant to run on. And this governor has had very legitimately gay rights reform and gun control reform. And I think this was another issue that he heartfully felt. I think this governor does feel reform is necessary, but I think it became another checkoff to be able to say, I at least got something accomplished. Unfortunately, that something was disappointing and not the comprehensive campaign finance reform that we had hoped with the when this commission was created.
You saw the specific allegation that Larry Schwartz, probably the most senior aide to Governor Cuomo, picked up the phone and called one of the three co-chairs, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and told him to pull a subpoena. And there was apparently three other eyewitnesses, or at least earwitnesses, to that conversation. Did you hear about things like that as well? I know that you yourself was never pressured. You were on the advisory committee, but did this surprise you?
To be very honest with you, I've been here through 5 governors, and aides to the governors are usually very ardent supporters of the man or woman, in this case all men, that they worked for. So that didn't surprise me. Larry Schwartz is a very knowledgeable, but a very ardent, loyal supporter of Governor Cuomo. So I think if he felt it was going to hurt the governor in any way, that's exactly what he felt he had to do.
Finally, Barbara, you know, I was surprised, and I know some other folks here who even follow Albany, that Preet Bharara, the U.S. attorney, went as far as he did a few months ago when he said, in effect, no, the Moreland Commission would not go away quietly in the good night, that he was going to be doing an investigation. And I said at the time, he's not going to do this, especially if he's got any political motivations beyond the U.S. Attorney's Office, to cross this governor unless he believes there's a there there. This makes a little bit more sense with today's revelations in the Times. Were you surprised at all when the U.S. Attorney got involved? And from your experiences, do you think if he digs enough, he'll probably find something?
Well, one, I maybe euphoric is a little bit too strong to say, but I was very pleased that Mr. Bharara came in and will continue the work that the Moreland Commission started. And will he find a there there? I think from his experience, if there's anybody that can find a there there, it's probably Mr. Bharara.
And before I let you go, you are not new to this as it relates to Albany, in state politics in New York, certainly. Were you even surprised from your time being involved with the commission just how rooted, if not corruption, but just how rotten the system is in Albany? Not just how much of a need there is for a Moreland Commission, but just how much dirt, if unfettered, it could really dig up?
Am I surprised? No, not at all. I think Mr. Farrick, back when, mid-'80s, began this process. There was problems then. There have continued to be problems. I think over the last 30 years, we've had 25 legislators be indicted, many of whom have gone off to serve time in our state prisons. So the time has come for the public to actually get involved. We need to have the public aware that it is their responsibility to make their legislators accountable.
Barbara, I really appreciate the time here. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
You know, Andrew, I'm not sure there's any real criminal exposure. They're going to dig in. The U.S. Attorney, I'm sure, will see if there is. But from what the promise of this was to what it at least looks like on the surface as nakedly political, that really looks bad.
You know, on the legal front, I'm not a lawyer. You've got enough of them coming on later on the show.
But you play one on TV.
I suspect it's probably not, and we see this all the time with executives and commissions. Though using the leverage of the Moreland Commission to try to pass legislation saying either give me what I want or I'm going to let this Moreland Commission stay off the chain comes dangerously close to that border that we've talked about a lot of times where is it just politics or is it extortion? So there's some questions there. I think Larry Schwartz could have some issues legally. And again, I'm not a legal expert on that. Politically, it just looks terrible for the government.
Speaking of politically, Republicans, they didn't miss the chance to jump on this today.
Well, every criticism that you would expect to come from Republicans who are seeking office this November came from those Republicans. Rob Astorino calling for investigations and possibly resignation and firings as well. John Cahill, who's running for Attorney General, somehow blamed this all on the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman. So exactly the political moves that you would expect coming out of this.
Of course, we'll have more on this. But when we come back, we will head to Newark, New Jersey, where a federal watchdog will be keeping a very close eye on the police that's following a series of civil rights complaints which the feds say disproportionately affected African Americans. Also, our legal panel will take a close look at the investigation surrounding the death of Eric Garner, the man who died in Staten Island after allegedly being put in a chokehold. That and much more straight ahead.